Today is Friday, March 8th, and I was wondering if we all might like to catch up with what's happening with the Dallas Cowboys with a true insider.
And now, a word from our title sponsor.
Are all financial advisors fiduciaries? Fewer than you think. Not knowing could reduce your lifestyle. Hi, I'm Mitch Kramer, founder and CEO of Fluent Financial. A fiduciary is a regulatory term to reduce conflicts of interest in wealth management. A fiduciary always works in your best interest. A non-fiduciary advisor might put their compensation or company ahead of yours. At Fluent Financial, we are certified financial planners acting as fiduciary advisors. To learn more, go to fluentfinancial.com or Fluent Financial's YouTube channel.
Star Power Expo is the best time to update your home. Get spectacular prices on the best in home entertainment, luxury appliances, smart home products, leather seating, and more. Check out innovations like the 171-inch video wall from LG. The Star Power Expo 3-day savings event runs from Friday, March 8th through Sunday the 10th at both Star Power locations, North Dallas and South Lake. Check out all the deals by going to the website, starpowerexpo.com. David Moore is in his fourth decade writing sports for the Dallas Morning News. It's his 14th year as the lead beat reporter for the Dallas Cowboys. As a graduate of UNT, by the way, just about everybody who's anybody in this area graduated from UNT. He covered the Mavs. He covered the NFL in general. He is the source for Cowboy news on his many segments per week on The Ticket. And he also co-hosts during the football season Intentional Grounding on Wednesday nights. I could list all of David's reporter awards, but we're trying to keep this to a reasonable length.
Would you tell my employer about some of those awards? They may have forgotten. We can go back. No, it's all good. All good.
All right, here we go. Let me start by looking back. We're going to look back and look at the present today because you're going to be with us again next week as we look at the future. I want to look back at whatever that train wreck was against the Green Bay Packers. You've had a couple of months now to digest it. Do you have any feeling for what happened that day?
There are still people in the organization, players, coaches, front office, personnel. They still haven't quite figured out just what happened that day. That was such an aberration, not just for what we had seen from that team by and large last season, but in the previous two seasons as well. You know, I would argue that was the most out of character performance in a significant game. Well, they had another when they faced San Francisco earlier this year. And I think it speaks to, you know, Dallas has gone 12-5 in the last three seasons under Mike McCarthy. I thought the first two 12-5 teams were more consistent in their effort week in and week out, and their performance week in and week out. I thought this one was a little bit more up and down than what we'd seen in this 3-year stretch of 12-5, but it also appeared that the ceiling was higher. They didn't come close to the ceiling in that playoff game. That was dropping through the floor from the start. And we can, you know, now I think a lot of people are groping and scrambling in this offseason trying to explain it. And I think the definition or what this week people are latching on to or the last week and a half is culture. What's the culture out there? What's this or what's that? I will say playoff games are won by your best players rising to the occasion and having big games in the moment. Mm-hmm. Go through the big names on this Cowboys roster and tell me how they performed in that Green Bay game. And I believe every single one of them will tell you they did not perform at the level that they've become accustomed to performing. And sometimes I think we make it too hard. I just think that they had across the board. It was a team effort in this one. Across the board, this team and especially its top players did not play up to form.
I hate to use this word because it really does cast aspersions on the head coach. But just looking at the game on television, looking at the effort, looking at the sidelines, did you get any feeling this team had taken the Packers for granted?
One, I don't look, they were the favorite, and historically, not just with Mike McCarthy, but going back through the Jason Garrett years, when this team had even a modicum of success in the postseason, they were usually the underdogs or an afterthought, not in a prominent position. And this team unexpectedly got the number 2 seed, got the 2 home games. They had not lost at home all year. I think every team in the NFL is straddling that line all the time of confidence versus overconfidence, which can lead to maybe, lessening the tightening of the screws just a bit as you get ready for a game. And I think they did not feel invulnerable at home, but I think they felt that, hey, this really is set up for us to go longer than this franchise has gone in 28, 29 years. Let's go out and do it. They got knocked to the mat, I would say, a couple of times in the first half, and then just never really recovered from that.
This year, Jerry has chosen to let Mike McCarthy approach 2024 on the last year of his contract. And the assistants are all in last year's of contracts. Is there some danger in this? Is there some danger if the club starts slowly of the players saying, well, they're out of here anyway?
That's the biggest concern in my mind. Jerry Jones views it as, look, we've had good results on this before. Players are often going to the final year of their deals. Look how they perform. Why should coaches be any different? If we do have to make a change after this year, you have the whole landscape clean for whoever comes in. So it's a clean severance, if that is what it's going to be, or it is okay, let's re-up and go because we saw the progress and from what we feel has been put in place. But that is Jerry Jones and the Jones family frustration at this point. They feel they have built the personnel and the culture, and you're seeing those results in the regular season to where this team should break through in the postseason, and they haven't seen it yet. So they believe it's in place. They want to see it happen with Mike McCarthy and this staff. But if they don't, they're gonna have to make a decision, in my mind, I think, to move on. And that's what this year is set up. Now you lift off another key element in that. Dak Prescott could go into this season in essence in the final year of his contract. That's a different definitions of Jerry's all in, right? But that is an all in proclamation if that happens.
We will circle back to Dak's contract in just a minute. You have mentioned twice the culture. And Dalton Schultz, who was a good player here for 4 years and left in free agency to the Texans last year, had some pretty negative comments about the Cowboys culture, calling this whatever you call it, a zoo. Does that make you the head zookeeper?
It's I think maybe someone else wears that mantle or is in that ring. But you hear this. I mean, the Cowboys conduct business unlike any other team. And I've maintained for a long time, now this is starting to be outdated, but they're the Kardashians of the NFL. They're always talked about, they're popular for their celebrity more so than what their accomplishments are in a particular season. I think they are, you look at how most players and organizations elevate their profile is by what happens in the postseason. The Cowboys have such a focus on them during the regular season that I think some of that regular season success elevates them above what other players in this league have, which requires playoff success. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect there. But to me, the most interesting, you can untangle this from many different ways. To me, the most interesting way to put it, though, would be, let's say there is a culture issue. Let's say that is at the core of 29 years of postseason inability to get past the divisional round of the playoffs. Why hasn't that manifested itself in the regular season?
Yeah.
This team is 12-5 over the last 3 years. Are we saying their culture is great in the regular season and it's bad in the postseason? So I don't think I understand people groping for answers, and that's a nebulous one you can point to. And yes, everything that goes with Jerry Jones and being with the Cowboys is different than any other franchise in the league. No question about that. But there still comes to a point where your players have to perform in high pressure situations, and your coaching staff has to perform in high pressure situations and come up with a game plan that out schemes the opponent. And did that happen against Green Bay? I would say players and coaches fell short on that front.
Let's go to a few of the present situations for this club. Do you think, first of all, to create a little bit more cap space, that the club will cut wide receiver Michael Gallup?
I believe it is lining up that way, yes.
Right.
I think they would love to have him still here, but the money they can save, the way Jalen Tolbert came on, the way you can pick up another receiver in this draft, I think it's likely they move on from Michael Gallup to get space.
Dak has a contract this year that's larger than the budgets of several third world nations.
Yes, it is.
The Cowboys could theoretically let him play out his contract at $59.5 million, but all signs seem to point to an extension. So my question for you, David, is how much? How long?
That is the devil is in the details, right? I believe what you will see happen here, there is a third option that is not discussed that much. Now, in essence, it does take him into the final year of his deal, but they can trigger a clause in his contract, which they've already done twice. They can trigger it again before March 13th, where they can convert a large part of that money this year into a bonus and roll it back into the final 2 dummy years of the contract. In essence, reduce his pay this year to the veteran minimum if they wanted to go down that far, and then kick the can down the road again is the phrase you hear everyone use. Now, in that scenario, he would drop from $59 million to about $42 million. So you're picking up $17 million in cap space right now at this moment in order to get your business done, with the understanding that, no, we still want to try to work something out as an extension. That's what makes more sense here. And that gives you several more months to do it. My belief is that is how this will proceed.
I know you hear from fans all the time, from Cowboy Nation. A good percentage of Cowboy Nation is not convinced that Dak is the man. Are the people of the Jones family convinced that Dak is the man?
I have not heard them say this. How the negotiations went with him earlier, where they put the franchise tag on him a couple of years, where things are now, how he has performed in the postseason. And look, Dak is such a polarizing figure. You're either on Team Dak or you hate Dak. There's no in between, which is a very unreasonable way to look at this. But that is how the camps have been drawn, and there's no movement on it right now, really. But my belief on where the Jones family is, they like everything that Dak Prescott represents and brings to this franchise. How could you not? He's a quality guy. He is a top 10 quarterback in this league. I think where the Jones family wrestles is with, you can be all of that, but does that make you a franchise quarterback?
Right.
A franchise quarterback is one you're willing to pay above and beyond because he's going to raise the level of everyone around him. He's going to make otherwise ordinary receivers a big part of this. He's going to put them in position to succeed. There are precious few quarterbacks who fall into that category. I think the Jones problem is you have two, maybe three franchise quarterbacks in the league right now at this moment who are setting the market. But if you're a top 5 quarterback and you're coming up, which is where Dak is, you pay him in that pay scale based on what it is. I think, now this is a collective bargaining issue. It's not going to change. I think that quarterback salaries are commanding so much of a percentage of the cap now. My belief is owners going forward are going to say, well, wait, we need a cap within a cap for quarterbacks to kind of control this. But hey, no sympathy here, no excuses for the Jones family. They know exactly what the financial landscape here now is, and they've got to make that decision. Do you move on from one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league because you don't feel he's a franchise quarterback and you haven't gotten past the second round? If you don't have an option in place that you like or you feel good about going forward, or you're going to be in a position of rolling the dice for a couple of seasons. That's another reason these contracts are escalating, because that's a very precarious spot to put your franchise in.
Well, I'm going to present a dangerous picture to you. Let's say they sign Dak and he's not the man. Let's say they move on from Dak and get a quarterback who's not the man. At that point, don't the Cowboys, haven't they reached a point where a lot of the star players may want to say, I'd like to move on?
Sure. And how old is Jerry Jones at that point?
Right.
Which is another look. Jerry Jones feels this team is close. He is loath to tear it down, knowing that the rebuild and building it back up is going to take some time unless you catch lightning in a bottle. I think he is more resistant to doing that now than he was 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's just a fact of growing older, a fact of the mounting frustration of going 29 years without being able to break through. When you feel you're right there at that juncture, when you feel this is the year you can break through, and I think they felt that for the last couple of years at least. I think you're very resistant to going, okay, let's just launch ourselves into a brave new future, and we're going to figure it out as we go. That was the Jerry Jones you got when he bought the club. Uh-huh. That is not who this Jerry Jones is now. And this happens to everybody. Al Davis ran the team much differently later in his career than he did earlier in his career.
Yeah.
Just like players play the position differently, I believe owners and general managers manage the team differently based on where they are in their careers. And I don't think we talk about that with Jerry enough. But he's not the wildcatter that his reputation when he had coming into this league. He's not that same wildcatter that he was.
Well, let's finish there for this segment. David, is Jerry Jones trying to do what is virtually impossible by being an owner and a general manager? The owner is the team's biggest fan. The general manager has to be the biggest SOB on the team. He's got to make hard, draw the line decisions. Is Jerry trying to do something with two different personalities that really don't go together?
That's a great point. And I tell people all the time when they're confused by what Jerry Jones says, which I certainly understand that phenomenon. But how was Jerry answering that question? Was that Jerry, the owner, answering the question? Or was it Jerry, the general manager, answering that question? And those are often two different things. I will also say Jerry is more owner than he is GM. The vast majority of those decisions are being handled by Stephen Jones now. The vast amount. The difference is that Jerry Jones, as owner, can still insert himself into the process at any point and say, I understand what you're saying. I understand your rationale, but no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. And so when you have a personality where all of the power roles are rolled into one individual, can you have a true management approach in place, or is it just a variation of a cult of personality or a strength of personality? And personalities by nature don't have the structure that you do within an industrial system or management system. So I think that's what we've seen here with Jerry Jones through the years. I don't think he makes as many decisions as people think he does, but you can go 2 or 3 years, firmly establish what you're going to do, and then in year 3, in the second round or the fourth round or with a particular trade, Jerry can go, well, no, I don't want to do that here. I think we should do this. This is what we're going to do. And so then what is your system at that point? You break out.
David, thank you for your insight, for your time. Very much appreciated. You'll be with us again in a few days to look at the Cowboy future. And until then, be well, my friend.
You too. Thank you so much, Norm.
Today's episode brought to you by Fluent Financial, Retire Sooner, Better Lifestyle, and by Star Power, Love Where You Live.
Just Wondering is a production of DSP Media for FanStream Sports. You can find Norm's show along with other great programming at fanstreamsports.com.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, hit follow. And every weekday, a fresh new episode of Just Wondering will be delivered right to you. And if you enjoy this podcast, please share it with a friend. Finally, should you have questions or comments, please share them with us by going to X and our address at Norm's Clubhouse. That's Just Wondering with Norm Hitzges. And every day, I'll be just wondering about something.